Right, now, almost 2.5 years since that famous Brexit referendum, and we're either heading towards the end of days or the greatest opportunity in our modern history. There are no half measures in Brexit land, where Marmite is the staple diet. So whether you're cheering from the rooftops or jeering from the bottom of an empty glass of Blue Nun, we want to see you in action, because it's 12-y time. Send us your Brexit-themed selfies, whether joyously blowing a party whistle in your jaunty red, white and blue paper hat, furiously chewing on your blue and yellow starred Remainer cushion, or timidly hiding behind the sofa with a tin hat gripped tightly to your head. We want the full gamut of emotions. Don't hold back. And remember, a picture has to show you watching tonight's programme. So do your 12-y worst, send them to #12y. We'll be broadcasting them at the end of the show. You have been warned. Nightmare on Brexit Street. It's a Threadneedle production starring the Bank of England's very own matinee idol, Mark Scary Carney. It tells the tale of a country which dared to leave the European Union without a deal, only to face fire and brimstone, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and Sodom and Gomorrah, while being forced to watch all of Choo Choo's railway journeys back to back on a never-ending loop. That bit was really scary, let me tell you. Some critics claim it has the realism of a docudrama. Others have dismissed it as mere fantasy from folks with a record in fantastical productions. Perhaps the Dear May deal, a more complicated, sometimes unfathomable, but altogether more gentle romp through the ups and downs of Brexit, is more to your taste. But that's not short of critics either, even among those who said Brexit would be a walk in the park. Here's leading lever Isabel Oakeshott with her take of the week.
Brexit should have been a great opportunity for Britain to rise tall, but Theresa May's deal is such a national humiliation that even I, as a Eurosceptic, would rather stay in the EU than see this go through. Donald Trump's right. It will cripple the UK. We'll be trapped with all these EU rules and regulations with no influence. It's everything Leavers feared. It doesn't help that the gloomy Remainer Chancellor and the Governor of the Bank of England are still dishing out Project Fear, warning that everybody is going to be just a little bit worse off. What they forget is that most Leavers voted on principle. Number 10 should have been prepared to sell walking away without a deal as a positive outcome. No deal, no £39 billion for the EU, no massive problem. But they just weren't willing to do that. If we do now crash out without a deal, as Remainers like to put it, I feel the Tory party's fortunes will only be reversed with a new leader who can sell the positive potential of no deal and lift us out of this mess. Brexit has been a missed opportunity, and the Tories' handling of it so far has been a disaster that could dog the party for a generation. It has the potential to be as catastrophic as Black Wednesday was for the Tories in the 1990s, keeping the party out of power for 13 years. Of course, there should be an open goal for the Labour Party. The only saving grace is that they are so divided and busy peddling discredited Marxist policies, they're not really in a position to exploit the situation. The big risk for the Tories is that if voters feel betrayed on Brexit, there could be a new right-of-centre Eurosceptic party, and that could do the Conservatives a whole lot of damage. While Theresa May and her acolytes try to scare voters with dire predictions of financial ruin in the event of no deal, let's not forget that the EU is undemocratic and unaccountable. We shouldn't let this historic opportunity disappear.
Isabel Oakeshott, who's been going up in the world, but lands with a bang in our studio. Welcome to the programme. So if we're really heading for a no-deal Brexit, who best to lead no-deal Britain?
Well, I don't think we are heading for a no-deal Brexit because so many people in the Commons have made it clear that they won't put up with that.
But if we were, who would be best to lead it?
Well, it's certainly not up for me to comment on that, but I think...
No, it is. That's why we have you here tonight to comment.
The principle is that it needs to be someone who actually believes in the potential of no deal. I mean, the primary problem with the Brexit withdrawal agreement we've got at the moment is that it's been promoted by a Prime Minister who never believed in Brexit in the first place. So if we're going to have no deal, please let it be promoted by someone who actually thinks that is an exciting opportunity.
So it's presumed that it cannot be Theresa May?
I fear not.
So can we go further and suggest who it might be?
You're really determined on this one, aren't you? I mean, look,
it's a difficult course of action, so we need to know who's going to be leading us.
There are lots of Brexiteers who I'm sure would be very, very keen to show everybody that no deal is absolutely not the disaster that so many people claim it is.
Is the deal on offer really worse than no deal?
Yeah. I think it is. I mean, the reason that people like me hesitate to answer the question is because we don't want to be misinterpreted by you thinking that means we want to stay in the European Union. But this deal...
That would, in your case, Michael, that would never cross my mind.
So you said, is this worse than
the
staying
no
in?
deal?
Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, sorry, no.
Worse than no deal?
No, no deal is... I misunderstood you, I'm sorry. No deal is much better.
No deal is much better?
Yes. No deal... has been given this pejorative term, no deal or crashing out. What no deal means is simply being entirely outside the European Union.
What does it mean for Jaguar Land Rover in my constituency and the jobs of the people in my constituency? So, on 1st of April, what happens to them in a no deal scenario?
Well, Jaguar sells cars to China and to Saudi Arabia.
So all the parts that are coming from Europe.
And to Mexico.
I know where they sell cars to. So what happens on that day with their trade?
It's the supply chains is the big threat,
that come in on that day. If it's not crashing out to the thousands of people in my constituency who work at Jaguar Land Rover, sell it to them. Sell them this bold future.
I'd like to...
Maybe then Isabel will think you could be the Prime Minister and you can sell it.
I'd like to be consoling to you, but I agree that we have a real problem because the government has made no preparations for it. But that is a completely soluble situation, I have no doubt. Had we been aiming, as Isabel says, for the last 2 years, to do what the Prime Minister said was her policy, which was Brexit meant Brexit, and we weren't going to be in the single market.
But we are where we are.
Yes.
So isn't it too late to talk about no deal? I mean, we're not in the least prepared for no deal.
True, actually.
No deal is what happens if nothing else happens.
Yeah, and I'm also not sure that's true, actually, Andrew. So you talked to Dominic Raab, who really ought to know, having been the Brexit Secretary, albeit for a rather short time. You ask who would be fit to lead a no-deal situation. I would say Dominic Raab would be the first person that you might look to.
He doesn't even know that Dover is the border.
That's a ridiculous thing to say, Jess. I've looked at that footage and that is a ridiculous exaggeration.
Dominic, I cannot think of anyone I would least like to run the country than Dominic Raab.
We weren't asking who you would like to run the country, we're asking who would be fit to. And if you talk to him, he will say that the preparations for no deal are pretty advanced and there is absolutely no cause for panic there. But also, many Brexiteers are suggesting a rather different scenario in which we actually have a managed no deal. So there is time bought, we pay something to the EU, much as that may stick in the throat.
You can't manage it unless Brussels is prepared to be part of the management.
Well,
you would need them, and you're just about to renege on the deal they've spent 2 years trying to negotiate. Why would they do us any favours?
Well, I don't know whether they will be in the mood to do us any favours or not, but it's certainly something worth exploring, isn't it, if we end up in that scenario, but I don't think we will.
Was anyone listening to the Chancellor of the Exchequer, was it yesterday morning on the Today programme, when he was asked to come on and talk? So the first thing he says is that we'll be worse off with the Prime Minister's deal than we would be staying in the European Union, a remarkable thing coming from someone who's supposedly leading us towards the Prime Minister's deal. Second thing that was very striking was at least 10 times he referred to the Prime Minister's deal. As far as I know, not once to the government's deal or to our deal or the deal that we've negotiated. So guess what? Just before this vote is lost, which it is going to be, it has suddenly become the Prime Minister's deal, right? So once the Prime Minister's deal is gone, that means the Prime Minister goes as well. But this is the way of saying that the government doesn't need to go. He's disassociating himself,
absolutely.
but also laying down a marker that, as far as he's concerned, the alternative to the Prime Minister's deal is remaining in the European Union. And there will be, obviously, there will be a very strong current in the direction of being either in the European Union or closer to being in the European Union than the Prime Minister's deal.
Jess, supposing that Labour came to power in February, either the government loses you're laughing, it's a serious proposition.
Quite unlikely.
Well, we'll see.
In the time.
Supposing there's a general election
right.
which could be
Anything
forced
could happen.
on us, or
Minority
the government loses a confidence vote and the Queen is advised to ask Mr Corbyn to form a minority government and he speaks to the SNP. Supposing that was to happen, I don't think you can rule it out because, as you know, we're in uncharted territory.
we are.
It would be a month or so from the Brexit date. What would Labour do?
I mean, I can't really speak for Jeremy Corbyn. I'm not sure that he would want me to. But what I would do is I would extend Article 50 because there isn't time.
But you need the Europeans to agree to that.
I think the Europeans would agree to that with a new government,
I
wouldn't
think
they?
that's right.
I think
but
they
they wouldn't agree to do it for
probably would.
long, would they? So we might end up extending it and just ending up exactly where
Except
we are.
that we could also
still.
renege it.
How?
Because
Oh no, then you'd be pulling out altogether.
yes, you could renege
What,
on
revoke,
it.
But you could-
unilaterally revoke it.
You
Well, I
can
think that's being
unilaterally
explored
revoke
in a
it.
court case
But-
at the moment,
And it
isn't
was found that.
But it-
Well,
but-
I
but hold-
believe that
I
the
don't
ruling
think-
yesterday was.
Yeah, but hold on. For that,
it could happen.
for that to be valid, Labour would have to campaign in the election to do that.
Of course. In
Well,
fact-
and you and I know they're not going to do that.
Well, again, anything could happen in these crazy times. You go out for milk and there's a new world order.
Well, that'll teach you to go for milk. You just have some Blue Nun instead. I wonder whether Europe would be so keen to extend Article 50 for more negotiations. You know, there's a potential Eurozone crisis coming. I referred earlier to Mr Macron's problems. Germany at the moment is not governless, but it has the strong government it has always enjoyed has basically just disappeared. I could see if a government went to Brussels to say, give us more time because we're going to have a second referendum.
Yeah.
They may agree to that. I don't think they'd agree to more time for more negotiations.
Well, and I think they're very conscious of not setting precedents here, just to say that, you know, they don't want to set an example whereby we could just revoke Article 50 either, because they're afraid that other countries might try and follow exactly the same pattern and somehow get a better terms of membership of the EU and then, you know, muck around. So they may well not be in the mood to be helpful. Let's face it, they haven't exactly been helpful thus far, have they?
I mean, if you're a leaver, is what Mrs May's offering really worse than no Brexit at all? I mean, if you're a leaver, if you turn this down and the alternative is no Brexit, it's over. You'll never get a chance again to leave the European Union.
Mm. Yeah, sorry.
I'm not sure
and
we accept the premise,
This is
really.
where I was right at the beginning. This deal is worse than staying in the European Union. That doesn't mean I want to stay in the European Union.
Right.
It means I want something
Better.
different from this deal, which is closer to leaving.
Which is no deal in your view.
Well, yes, I think no deal should be a real option. And I know Jess says that members of Parliament are against it, and I perfectly understand that. But we don't yet quite understand the means by which the members of Parliament would stop it happening.
Because it is the legal default. That is what is going to happen.
You raised the prospect of the rise of a kind of UKIP-style party again. I mean, UKIP now barely exists as a parliamentary force in Westminster, or for Westminster elections. It's obviously got MEPs and so on. Do you think it could really rise from the ashes?
I think UKIP is absolutely discredited. We've seen more than ever that it's discredited in the last week or so with their flirtations with Tommy Robertson.
Yeah, they've invited Mr Robinson in.
I mean, I don't think UKIP can revive. but
Wouldn't
I
the
think
Tories become the kind of the
But actually,
Brexit party?
I mean, no, I think
They
they're
wouldn't?
completely discredited on that. I mean, curiously, UKIP is actually polling pretty high at the moment. I think last poll I read, it was something like 8%. So even if we all think it's a joke and worse than that, a disgrace, the point is that there will be a vacuum for a new movement, and that could do the Conservatives an awful lot of damage.
I think there will be a lot of people who will be determined to vote against the Tories, will not think that it's worth voting for the Liberal Democrats, will not feel that they're able to vote for Corbyn because that would damage their own interests. I'm talking about kind of middle-class, typical Tory voters. And they will vote for anything.
They're going to need somewhere to go.
UKIP or whatever it calls itself.
If there was a second referendum, would it Aaron Banks bankroll it again, do you think?
I very much doubt it. I don't think anyone would want him to bankroll it. It's just caused a lot of grief. I can't imagine that he would want to do that, or even whether he would have the money to do that.
Are you clear in your mind where the money came from for the first referendum?
From
Mr. Banks?
I'm not actually. No, I don't know. I don't think anyone is particularly clear on where it came from. I'm not even sure he's clear on where it came from.
Well, it's his money. He must know.
Well, you have probably listened to him explaining the convoluted web of companies that it's been.
But we don't know what
through.
company. We've not seen any company balance sheet that shows an £8 million loan going from a company he owns to the Leave.eu campaign, have we?
Well, he waved something around, didn't he? But half of it was redacted. I mean, he's very... Look, I'm not here to apologise
I understand that.
or defend for him.
I just wondered if you
But
knew.
I think it's very interesting that so much attention has been paid to the Leave finances when there are so many question marks over the Remain campaign's.
Well, it's possible to ask questions about both.
But actually, not many people are asking about the Remain. The Electoral Commission has proven to be extremely reluctant to investigate.
But I'm interested that you don't know where the money comes
completely
from.
partisan, the Electoral Commission.
Isabel Oakeshott, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Brexit never goes away.